Today's episode is brought to you by Forvis Mazars.
SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Does it ever feel like you're walking on eggshells at work? That there are team members who might get all fired up if their points of view are challenged? Communications specialist Leah Mether says the world is getting more polarised, in no small part thanks to social media, and so it's important to relearn how to debate ideas without attacking each other. Leah offers her tips on how to respectfully disagree shortly, but don't shy away from disagreements altogether. As Leah tells Chris Ashmore, they're not a bad thing.
No, they're not. Actually, disagreements are essential for a high-functioning team that makes good decisions. It's not disagreements that are the problem. It's that we seem to have forgotten how to do them effectively as the world's becoming increasingly polarised. We see it a lot on social media as well as in our workplaces. We've seemed to have forgotten how to disagree with respect or how to debate ideas without attacking the person. So it's not the disagreement itself that's the issue, it's the way a lot of us are doing it.
Why is that? How have we lost that ability?
Look, I think there's a few things going on. I do think that increasing polarisation of there's a right and there's a wrong. And, I can't get into the nuance with you because you're either on my team or you're not. You're either for or against. That really has eroded a lot of the conversation, a lot of the willingness to sit and hear the other person. We just do a lot of shouting at each other, and that's obviously amplified with the algorithms on social media, which feed that and show us more and more of that volatility in action. And I think we're playing into that. But also, let's face it, a lot of people have never actually been taught these skills in the first place.
Right. Well, what are those skills? How do we disagree in a respectful way? I understand you have a few tips.
I do, and I'd love to run through some of those with listeners. First and foremost, it comes to how you manage yourself. So much of the success is in the preparation. So basics like making sure that if you know you're going into a meeting and it's likely to get a bit heated, making sure that you're regulating your emotions before you go in and really asking yourself going into that conversation, is this something I need to engage about? Is this something I need to get involved in? Because sometimes the answer is no. So making sure that, yep, this is one that you want to contribute to. And that doesn't just mean because you want to change the other person's mind. Sometimes it might be, I need to get involved here. I need to put my voice on the record because what is being said is against my personal values. So maybe I do need to call out that poor behaviour. So recognising if it's something you want to engage in the first place, and then being really clear on what outcome you're actually after. Is it just to get your voice on the record? Is it to persuade? Is it something else entirely? So that thinking before you even open your mouth is really crucial. But then once you get in, there's some real basics and they're simple, but a lot of people forget to do them. These are tips like stating your intention, because you might know that your intention here is to encourage people to think from different perspectives so that you make a better decision. But the other people might read it as you trying to start a conflict. So explain the why, and what that might look like is me saying to you, look, the reason I want to raise this alternative perspective is because I want to make sure that we're looking at the full picture here, because I'd hate to make a decision and then us go out to the workforce and find that it blows up there. So my intention is not to create conflict, it's to ensure this is a really well thought out decision. And what that does when you explain the why is help show people, you're actually on the same page as me. You might have a different opinion, but that doesn't mean it's an attack. Another one would be the importance of I statements. Again, It's simple, but it's important. If I say to you, you're wrong, what are you likely to say back to me?
No, I'm not.
Exactly right. We're getting into an escalated conversation straight away, into probably an argument. Whereas if instead of making an accusation by going to a you statement, I use an I statement by saying something like, you know what, Chris, I disagree with that perspective. What are you more likely to say then?
Why?
Yeah, bingo. Why? So we might still disagree, but we're now in conversation. And here's the crucial point about what we're doing now. We're discussing the idea, not attacking each other. And that's where we're trying to get to in a disagreement. We're trying to play the ball, not the person. And sometimes you even need to make that clear. And it might be saying something like, look, Chris, you and I both want the best outcome here for the team. We might be coming at it from different angles. That's okay. But let's not lose sight of the fact that we are both trying to get the best result for the company here. And when we do that, when we put the issue in the middle of the table, that helps serve as a reminder of what we're trying to achieve rather than getting into the personal attacks. Another point here that I do think is worth throwing into the mix is the importance of getting curious, not furious. If the other person says something that you really disagree with, the temptation can be to jump in and straight away say, that's ridiculous. No, you're wrong. What I encourage listeners to do is train themselves to ask a question. And what that might look like is saying something like, Chris, that's really different to how I see things. Can you help me understand how you came to that position? And that approach does a couple of things. It allows me to pause and regulate my own response, but it also gives me context because I might assume, and we make so many assumptions that are wrong, I might assume that you are being ridiculous, for example, but you might then share with me that your perspective comes on your lived experience or some context I wasn't aware of. And by creating that space for you to share that, it means I have more information. And it also means that now if I counter what you said and say, look, Chris, I appreciate that's your perspective. However, for these reasons, I disagree. You're more likely to listen to me because I took the time to listen to you.
What happens if, despite our efforts, we're using the right language, that the other person becomes a bit over the top, they get angry, they start swearing and they're carrying on? What do we do?
Yeah, you do need to know when to shut it down. You can't control how someone else responds. You can do everything in inverted commas right, and they still react poorly. They get angry, they swear, they maybe even make you feel unsafe. Now, if it's in written form or on social media, for example, this is where we just choose to disengage, but often it's face-to-face in a meeting in the workplace. This is where a little technique that I call escalate with notice is really powerful. And what that looks like is I essentially let you know what my next steps are going to be if you continue behaving this way and put the ball in your court to step up to it. So let me give you an example. That might be me saying to you, look, Chris, I appreciate we've got different ideas here and I'm happy to have this conversation. However, if you continue swearing at me like that, I am going to have to end this now and leave. And then the ball's in your court. If you keep swearing at me, that's when I follow through and I say something like, okay, Chris, like I said, I'm happy to have this if we're not swearing at each other, but for now I'm going to end this meeting and we can try again another time. Or it might be on the phone, me saying, I'm happy to have this conversation with you, but if you keep swearing at me, I am going to have to hang up the phone. I hope that you can step up and do that. I'm not just slamming the phone down in your face. I'm not just cracking it at you and saying, that's not okay, and storming off. I'm giving you the chance to regulate. And if you can't, that's when I'm following through. And folks, if anyone listening is in that position where you have to do that, that's where it's really important to then let your boss know record this somewhere so that it is on the record that you have done everything you can to resolve this effectively. And unfortunately, that was not able to happen in that instance.
That was communication specialist Leah Mather. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Producers are Nick Schildberger, Chris Ashmore, Jeff Waters and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Forvis Mazars. To find out more, visit forvismazars.com/au. That's FORVISMAZARS.com/au.